Now it's the abuse scandal that has shaken women's soccer in the United States. And as the national team prepares to face the Lionesses at Wembley on Friday, the players have spoken of their hurt and anger. A report found that players in the National Women's Soccer League were subject to systemic abuse and misconduct. And squad members say the depth of the allegations have caused significant pain.
We can cope with this and we are able to go out and train and focus on football, but it's hard and we're angry. Personally, I feel like in a weird spot just because, you know, I learned new things in this investigation that I didn't know before, and I wanted to wait and read it for myself. And to be a part of an organization that was in this is really hard for me. So I just want to make sure I echo what Becky had stated and thank those players for coming forward. Obviously, it was hard for me to first do that when I spoke out about my situation at PSG, and I wasn't able to do as much as some of these girls did, so I thank them. And yeah, I also want to say that this isn't just it. You know, it's not just the NWSL. This is women's football in general. It's women in general. We have these problems all over the world. You know, it's a global systemic problem. So I don't want that to be, you know, the end point. You know, like this investigation, you know, came forward, and obviously we're thankful for that, but it took way too long. This whole thing was prolonged incredibly, and I sit here and I'm like, it's not done. You know, this is all over the world, and being a player in Europe right now, I know that it's frustrating. And it's not just to speak out once, it's to speak out multiple times, to send multiple emails, to complain I don't know how many times. I'm still reading as much as I can, and yeah, it's very, very frustrating. And again, this isn't just it. You know, there's probably more and more cases that are unknown. Obviously, I'm a part of an organization that I've always felt very proud to play for, and a team that, you know, I fight on the field for, and a club that I fight on the field for. And so it's hard to kind of read this and look back at that and, you know, feel proud to play for an organization like that. That's really hard for me personally, and especially with all the work that you put in for that team and for that club. I think that's where I feel, you know, hurt and disturbed, and obviously just so much anger for these players as well.
Well, Scotland women's captain Rachel Coursey is preparing for her country's World Cup playoff with Austria. She spent a significant part of her career playing in the United States and is hopeful that the bravery of those who've spoken up about abuse will be reflected in a safer working environment.
I think it's huge. I think naturally when you see other people come forward and you can relate to something, then of course we want to make sure that there's as many safeguards, processes, places for people to be able to speak out about these behaviours that we know are not acceptable and perhaps have happened for a long time in the past. And yeah, I think that's something that we can all learn all around the world, that whilst it's really difficult to read and it's been a really difficult process and time for the NWSL, for the players, for the people specifically involved, for the broader group, as I mentioned, the reason that or one positive that you can take from it is that they're trying to do this to prevent it happening in the future, to limit the opportunity for this in the future, and to make things better. And I think that's something that's a powerful message.
Well, the revelations that led to the damning report on the abuse in the NWSL were first brought to light by the American journalist Meg Linehan. Now, she told us there have to be consequences for all of the institutions involved.
I mean, I think what we're all really waiting on is to see what the accountability piece of this is going to look like. There's going to be policy changes, and we know that, but I think what is really to be determined are the owners, general managers, all of the people in power who have built this system and who have enabled abuse of pretty much every kind within NWSL, if there are going to be repercussions for them. A few owners have removed themselves from the decision-making process in the NWSL, but that's really all we've seen so far.
When you say, when we talk about the abuse, you're right, it is all sorts. It's sexual, it's exploitation, it's bullying, it's harassment. How concerned are you that this is too big a problem for one organisation to deal with?
I think everyone that I've spoken to has said we don't pretend like we're going to know all of the answers, right? There were institutional failings from pretty much every institution that was involved. And part of the problem is that those institutions also pointed fingers at each other, that they were actually the ones responsible. So I think it's going to take all of those institutions, but what we've seen really over the course of the past year plus is the players are the ones who are forcing this change, who I think are being forced to own the process, even though they shouldn't have to own that process. But it's been player pressure, it's been public pressure that has really driven this, and it took reporting and journalism to actually reveal it. The institutions weren't doing the right things, but can they do that now? That, I think, is the question that everybody's asking.